Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to yet another episode of Disruption Talks, our series of live stream discussion and podcast where we invite top experts to discuss digital acceleration, winning strategies, innovation, and scaling products. And today we have the pleasure to discuss Bedrock AI, how AWS, which is one of the key services at Amazon, is making a difference in generative AI. And I have the utmost pleasure to have today with us our guest speaker, expert, Tomasz Stachlewski, Head of Technology, EMEA CE at AWS. Hello, Tomasz. Great to have you.
Thanks a lot for having me here. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great weather in Poland. So, very excited about this conversation and with the talk with you. So, a lot of positive energy.
Okay, that was one of the most powerful start we have in our series. And dear audience, if you have any questions, please paste them in the LinkedIn chat. We'll try to at least have some answers for you. And now let's begin. Tomasz, before we dive deeper into the generative AI topic, could you please explain your role a little bit better, because the head of technology is different in many companies. So what does it mean to be a head of technology at AWS? What are you doing there?
Yeah, definitely. Different companies have got different, definition of different things. So head of technology at AWS, my role. So pretty much to say it simple, I'm leading the team of highly specialist people, solutions architect, who help customers, from small to the biggest enterprise, to properly migrate and start using the cloud. So long story short, I'm helping by myself or by other people, companies to properly start using the cloud and innovate and start using the most modern, cool, new technology by them.
Okay, so in other words, you're in the direct contact with the AWS customers, right?
Totally, yes.
Okay, so does it matter for you from which industry they are coming, or you're agnostic?
I'm totally agnostic, and I would say that this is one of the best things in my job for me. That one day, Monday in the morning, I talk with a startup. The same day afternoon, I'm talking with enterprise, financial enterprise. The next day, I'm talking with enterprise, which is focusing on the retail. We're talking about big data. So a lot of different customers, a lot of different sizes of those customers, a lot of different problems, and also solutions which needs to be used to solve those problems. And one of those solutions is exactly machine learning, generative AI, which will be the topic of today's speech.
Okay, sounds like a very exciting, but also very demanding job, like the constant context switching.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting that you said this, because I always say exactly the same word. So this is a type of the job where you need to love, the context switching, because there's a lot of the context switching, and that's why you are in this constant feeling of, dopamine, a lot of energy, a lot of things, a lot of coffee, a lot of Red Bull, to be constantly, 100%, focused.
Okay, great. It wasn't like the scripted, just a note for the audience, and that was no product placement, obviously. Okay, so I may assume that some of our attendees today, like guests watching us, hearing us, listening to us, may not have the knowledge yet. So let's start with the very basic question: how are you explaining the generative AI to your customers, in a nutshell?
A good question, and on one hand, very easy question and very difficult, because when we think about generative AI, in simple words, it's a subset of artificial intelligence. It's a new type of artificial intelligence, which we started using this year and last year, and which is so hot topic across all the industries. But what exactly it is? So again, in a simple words, in a simple sentence, generative AI is a type of machine learning model which can build, create new content. This can be a text content, image, videos, which were not seen before. And this is very interesting because we haven't seen this kind of machine learning type before. And this is like, let's say, a next evolution of this kind of machine learning, application systems, which we see currently. And this is very interesting because when we are talking about generative AI, we also need to mention a few other concepts which are super important. So I was thinking a lot how to, describe this in a simple words, and I found this analogy. So let's say we're living in the world of superheroes. So there are superheroes, it can be Marvel, DC, whatever, and there are people with superpowers, but very special powers because one person can have only one superpower. Some people can fly. Some people can have a super strength. Some people have got, heat vision and so on. And this is a kind of the world in which we were living in the past. We were building machine learning models which were great in solving one specific problem. Maybe this problem was, let's predict the price of the houses in specific city and so on. So specific problem, specific solution, specific model. And now what we see currently is we are entering a new age when we want to have superheroes which can solve, which have got multiple different powers. So, you want to have a Superman who can fly, who can have got a super strength, who has got, heat vision and so on. And this is what we have now. So we are entering this age of something which is called a foundation models. A foundation model is a machine learning model which can solve a lot of different problems. So you don't need, like it was in the past, to teach it only one thing. Predict the price of the houses, tell me if this review is good, positive, bad, and so on. It's very generalized. It can solve a lot of different problems, and those are called foundation models.
So just for the sorry for the break, just for the notion, like you may if you read a lot about AI, you may found these foundation models by acronym letter F and FM. They are called FMs. Yeah.
Exactly. So sometimes you will find just those two letters just to make it easier. So this is the heart of generative AI. Very huge models. And why are we having those currently, and why we actually didn't spoken about those a few years ago? Because those are huge things. Just to give you also an analogy example, in 1957, when we first started building neural networks, there was the first perceptron which had only one neuron. It was a very simple neural network and so on. In 2019, we entered the first type of large language models, so those kinds of foundation model, and those, so 4 years ago, had more than 300 million parameters. A parameters is like an enter input for the model, and based on this, it will define how complex it is, what complex problem it can solve, and so on. And in 2019, the state-of-the-art models, foundation models, had more than 300 million parameters. But now, like in last year, the biggest models have got more than 500 billion parameters. So much more complex, much more bigger, and that's why they can solve much more interesting and complex problems, but also they are much more expensive, and we will discuss it later. So those are foundations models, which are the heart of generative AI. And the last thing which is worth, describing here is something which is called large language model. So depending on what kind of the problem you want to solve, you still will go to some specific models. Some models are for text. And that's why then you will be using large language models like GPT, for example, which is so popular those days. but there are also other models like for image creation and so on. So long story short, just going back to your question, generative AI is a new type of machine learning, which is able to create new content, both text, images, video, or anything else, and based on learning from a lot of data gathered very often from internet.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tomasz. It was very descriptive and informative for me. I loved your analogy. And speaking on when you mentioned the superheroes movies, I can try to draw another analogy, maybe not that great as your, but I was thinking that when we are watching all these superhero movies, we have all this like the transformation behind the superhero. So the usual person learning the new superpower, but then it turns out that it's not all great about all this superpower that the person is having, because our hero is dealing with a lot of challenges. So then the side effects and so forth. So I believe that we are at the very early stage right now of this generative AI revolution or disruption. So we still are very early on in understanding what are the problems and challenges related to this space. So, but still we see some, and I'm very keen to understand what, from your perspective, what risk or challenges you are seeing right now at this stage with generative AI.
This is a good point. And of course, every new technology is always bringing some, some questions, maybe some risks and so on, which needs to be evaluated. Sometimes we need time to solve some new problems, which we brought with new solutions and so on. And generative AI is nothing else in this context. It has got the power to solve a lot of problems. It has got the power to, completely change multiple different ways how we do the business, how we interact, and so on. But also, like you said, it's bringing new challenges which we were not, aware in the past. And there's a few of them which are very clear already now, even though, like you said, we are in the early days of this, new wave of machine learning. And one of the most popular, interesting, I would say, is something which is called hallucination. Hallucination, it's the word which we use with generative AI. Some people hate it because it builds the impression that we are talking about humans, and we are not. We're talking about machine learning. We're talking about the system, computers. The other group of people loves the word. I'm the part of the second group. I believe this is the great word. So what exactly hallucination means? Long story short, generative AI foundation models, large language models, are built based on analyzing a lot of data. What does it mean, a lot of data? Like petabytes of data. Very often from internet, Wikipedia, GitHub, some kind of, content which we want to be included and so on. And as all of us know, when something is in the internet, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's valid, sometimes it's not valid, fake news and so on. And, nobody told, generative AI, those models, which is actually good, which is proper and so on. And at the end, those are just stupid algorithms. So whenever you ask this generative AI model, tell me something, who is Tomasz Stachlewski, tell me what is the capital of Paris and so on, it will try to give you the answer based on what it has learned from the source content, probably internet and so on. And very often it will give you the answer, which from the syntax perspective, it's a great response. You read it, it's like the capital of Paris is the capital of France is Paris and so on. But sometimes it will tell you, for example, like the distance from Earth to Moon is 54 million of miles. good, nice sentence, sounds, wise, intelligent, but it's not true. So you need to you can't fully trust everything what will generative AI will tell you, because very often it just will be fake.
Yeah, I can, and one of recent examples to that, because one of our friends from that guru, I'm just saying hi Sylvia, if you're listening to this episode, so was on the road and asked me to help with the short personal bio for a conference, like the very short, but she needed it like quickly and didn't have like the time or like the opportunity to do it herself. So she asked me to for a short intro, and then I said, well, I'm lazy today, so I will use this chat GPT, like the tool we have inside at NetGuru at our disposal. So I just asked, I just pasted the link to her LinkedIn profile and asked for a bio, and then without thinking, like the generative AI obviously created a bio for me, like I just asked to shorten the bio, and then I get that she worked for like Deloitte Digital, and then she worked for this many years at the different stage for another company. And my first thought was, this is ready, I will just send it. And only after that, I just realized that I didn't check it. So when I checked, my first thought was, oh, I didn't know she worked at Deloitte. And then turns out like she didn't. But that was like the additional, like the context, the hallucination by the generative AI. So it happens, and what was curious for myself was that my first thought was not, let me check if the information is correct, but, oh, that's interesting, I didn't know she worked there. She didn't. So I think that's the real challenge right now. So to understand how to cooperate with this tool or computer or algorithm, whatever you call it.
Totally, and this is maybe the most difficult, because if it would just be giving you like a one word number and so on, probably you would think about okay, why this is the answer and so on. But because it gives you the beautiful sentence, sometimes it will give you even the numbers. The source for this sentence is here. This is the reference. This is the book. This is the article. Okay, so it needs to be true. But no, it just doesn't exist and so on. So you need to be careful with what you're using, for what you're using, and so on. So hallucination is one of the biggest challenges, but it's just one of multiple. The other one, let's just briefly describe, is being biased. So it will be the machine learning model based on the data which were used to learn it. Again, internet, like Reddit, like Wikipedia and so on, and depending on what kind of content you will use to train the model, it can be just biased for some kind of group of people, for a specific geography, color of the skin and so on. So you need to be careful if the data which were used to train it are fair across the population and so on. So this is the second problem. And there are a few more. So just quickly, the cost. It's really expensive, and I'm happy to go into the details in a couple of seconds. But it's expensive, and it's much cheaper than it used to be like a year, 2, 3 years ago. But still, we're just entering the time when the gates to this generative AI is becoming open for everybody. And the last thing is security. Let's be honest, probably majority of the people who are listening to us now have played with one of those generative AI platforms. We're writing things, we were waiting for the response, but the question is, did we thought about the security? Where are we sending the data? What will happen with the data? And this is crucial, to know that who on the other side will have good access to this data. Will the data which we have sent, will it be used for the others? How? And so on. So whenever we are talking about commercial usage of generative AI models, security is very often, the one of the most important things, because corporation, enterprises, companies, they don't want, that somebody will use their data.
Right. Before we dive deeper into like how exactly you're trying to figure out the best ways of dealing with such challenges at AWS, I would like to ask you one more question. Like, do you see could you name any areas where you would not recommend using generative AI right now? Like the areas when we shouldn't, like the companies shouldn't right now using because of any challenges that are out there?
Yeah, it's like sometimes it's much easier to say, to give it examples where we could use, but I believe that your question is very valid, to say where exactly we should, maybe now, maybe in 1 week, still wait a bit longer with using, generative AI. So of course, this is like, it's constant change. Those models will get better. Models which we are using now are better than they were like 6 months ago, and so on. So it will improve, but still, because of the hallucination, because of the bias, and so on, you should be careful with using those in a situation, in an interaction with your customers, with your end users, where you need to be sure that what you are telling to your users, customers, is actually valid. Because if you will tell them something which is totally, nonsense, you might, kill your business. So pretty much, whenever you can't risk, and when you need to know that 100% of the stuff which you tell your customers is true, maybe you should wait a bit more, until this technology will be just the best of the best. So for example, customer center, should we be using generative AI? For some cases, situation may be yes, but for some of them, maybe it's still better to pretty much to count on a human being, to have the conversation, to make sure that you are actually saying what is true.
Okay, I'm very interested. You don't need to get into specifics, but have you actually had this kind of conversation with one of your customers, like where you had the customers really wanting to use this AI because he or she learned something from the other articles, like from the other case studies that are out there, like really pushing, yeah, let's use it, why not? And then you were the ones telling, okay, we should be more cautious, please, like, don't push it because we need to find another way to solve this with AWS services.
So generative AI is a hot topic. Everybody wants to, are talking about it. If something is hot, they want to use it, and so on. And we have seen this before. Blockchain. In the past, and so on. But yes, I have seen multiple cases in the last 6 months when the customers, companies were so keen on let's do it, let's use it, and so on. But later, when we were like discussing some of the challenges, they were doing a step back. It doesn't mean that they were saying no, let's not use it, and so on, because we still should be evaluating options, because this is like a great thing which can open new doors for multiple different things. But we need to be careful with where we are using this kind of technology now currently, to not make more harm than the good stuff. So it's getting back to your question. It's like I like those conversations with companies, with customers, because it's like eye-opening. I'm showing those hallucination examples. I'm discussing the security, bias topics, and so on. And then people are like, okay, so let's evaluate where we could use it, how we could use it, and so on. Because also, yes, it's a great thing, but you can solve multiple different things with multiple different ways, solutions, and so on. And sometimes hammer is best for places where you have got where you want to use hammer. So the tool should be adjusted for the problem.
Right. That's not a easy task because we understand what Hammer can do, but we are not so great in understanding what generative AI can do. Like, no one teaches us about Hammer, like doing all these many superheroes things. So it's not that easy with the Hammer, but I love the analogy. And I'm checking the time. We are just in the half time past. So we have one question following what you said about security from our host Zofia. So following what you said about security, how does AWS ensure data privacy and security while utilizing this new tool set, AI and machine learning technologies? Whatever you can say, because I understand you perhaps cannot share too much about security, but what's your approach here?
Sure. So there's a few different services from AWS which provide generative AI solutions, and pretty much the answer for this question will be similar regarding in all of those cases. So on one hand, there is a service which is called SageMaker, which provide the ability to host, to build, to use generative AI models from multiple different sources. But there is also a new service, which is currently in the preview, which is called a Bedrock, which also provide those, but in much more like easy way, in a serverless way. So now when we combine the topic of, yes, we want to use generative AI, we want to use those great models, and the topic of security, the solution here is very easy. Pretty much AWS provides the models. It can be open source models from different kind of sources, but it ensures that the data, which, for example, the user will use to train the model, to tune it a bit better for a specific problem, will only be used, for this model. So it won't be reused by other customers, by other models, and so on. So the data never leaves something which is called like a private network of a customer. It will never be used to train other models and so on. So this big problem of enterprises is pretty much solved thanks to this. So the security in case of AWS is really like job number 01, depending on from which number you are starting to counting, and this is the way how we ensure that the data remain. It's the customer, and it won't be used by other people, customers, by AWS, by Amazon, in other models. So pretty much this is how we solve the problem.
Okay, thanks for this explanation. I think that the only science fiction movies fans are still suspicious because yeah, sure, data never leaves, but this is the internet, like the AI, and it can figure out on its own like how to hack the the regulations and the data privacy solutions that the humans set for the AI. But you mentioned Bedrock AI, and we started discussing the AWS services, which already are powered by generative AI. So let's discuss maybe the Bedrock AI. That's the key thing that we wanted to discuss today. Imagine that I'm the customer or the prospect, and how would you please explain to me what the Bedrock AI can help me with? What are the use cases and where I can use it, how I should approach Bedrock AI, and how I should think about Bedrock AI in understanding how can it help with what I'm doing.
Sure. So pretty much it's like this. Like I said before, when you want to use generative AI, there are those foundation models, and there are like a lot of those. GPT is one of those examples, but for example, there is a Stable Diffusion, which is a great model for creating images, and there's a few more of those, and like Falcon, and new one will come, and so on. And those different models are great for different things. So very often, what we see across the market, across the world, is that you will use the model which is the best for your use case, for your situation, and so on. So what now Bedrock provides you? Bedrock is a managed serverless service from AWS. What does it mean, serverless? It means that you don't need to spin up an infrastructure. You don't think about servers. You really don't think about a lot of stuff. It's just the easiest way pretty much to consume and to use generative AI models. And which models? It's up to you, because like I said, hammer is sometimes the best for places where you need a hammer, but sometimes you need other tools. And Bedrock provides you with the possibility to choose the best model for different things. So there are models which were created by AWS, like something which is called Titan. Titan is a foundation model from AWS for specific cases, but there is like models from AI 21 Lab, there are like Stable AI and multiple others. So you will choose the model, and pretty much after a few minutes, you can start using this. And why I said that this is the easiest way to start with generative AI, because pretty much, you just choose the model, and after a few minutes it's there, it's running, you can use it and so on. But also what you often will do then, you will also tune it. We didn't use this term before, but it's also very, very important, because those generative AI models are great for, very often just out of the box. But sometimes you will want to tune it a bit more, to solve even better your specific case. Because maybe you are a retail business, maybe you are a financial institution, maybe something else. So what Bedrock will allow you, you are just pointing, here is my data. It can be a really small data set, because yes, training the foundation models, the large language models, it's a petabyte of data, but it's there already. You don't need to do anything. It's then where you just say, okay, this is my specific data. This is my data from my company, which is secure because it won't be used by anybody else. And then what AWS is, it's add those data to the model only for you. It's retrain it. And then you can start using this by consuming API. So pretty much you take your application, you connect by API, and you start using it where you want it and how you want it. So pretty much it's just the easiest way to choose the best tool which solves your problem, because the choosing the best thing which solves your problem will be the most important. And then it's about the easy to choose, and also stop using when you don't need it. And this is why it's called serverless, because you don't need to have a PhD in machine learning. You don't need to have an expertise in running cloud infrastructure. You just start using.
Okay, great. So in our discussion about Hammer, I'm thinking about Thor as a superhero, maybe. So let's make it more tangible for our audience. So can you share some examples of customers using already generative AI on AWS, like customer success stories? If you cannot share the names, that's fine. Like maybe let's discuss what industry, what's the use case. A couple of these case studies would be great for I think for our audience.
Sure. So I will give you like two examples, because those are two totally different examples. So let's take, for example, Canva. Canva is a popular platform which can be used by, to create, PowerPoint presentations, to create images and so on. So pretty much Canva wanted to, to leverage generative AI. So pretty much now when you will go to Canva and you're browsing through, the collection of, millions of pictures, you can just write that I'm looking for a picture of a dog with a cat sitting on the beach, having a good time and so on. And then, generative AI is being used pretty much to, to look, sometimes to create the image which you're looking for. So this is one of those examples where they're leveraging existing solutions from AWS to make their interaction, their functionality for their customers much easier, and without PhD in machine learning. But on the other example, sometimes some of the customers, they have got very specific cases, and sometimes, but this is very unique, but also very interesting, they will say, we want to build our own foundation model, because those open source, those publicly available and so on are great, but they are not great for us. So let's take, for example, Bloomberg. Bloomberg, a popular financial company, created their own foundation model, which is called Bloomberg GPT, which is dedicated for financial, institutions, and so on, so on. And then what they have been using on AWS, they were using the infrastructure. So for example, dedicated, processor chips, which were designed by AWS, to operate, to train machine learning models just faster, more efficient, cheaper, pretty much. And why this example is very interesting, because we were talking before about different analogies, superheroes, and so on. So let me give you one more, maybe a bit easier. It's like this. Let's say your stomach is hurting, and you feel that something is wrong with your stomach, and you want somebody to help you, and you have got two options. One option is you will call your friend. This friend is just amazing. He knows what is the the biggest river in the world. If you will give the country, he will give you the capital, he will give you the population of this country. So he's great, amazing. But the question is, will you call him and say, what, my stomach is hurting, can you help me? Or maybe you will call a doctor. Yeah, this doctor doesn't know what is the capital of India. The doctor doesn't know what is the second biggest mountain in the world, but he's really good in human health. So you will call him. And this is also what we see currently, which is happening, in IT industries. Those foundation models, those generative models, which will be great in solving majority of the problems, will be for majority of the companies. And then it's those models like Falcon, GPT, Stable Diffusion, and multiple others, which companies will be using very often by Bedrock on AWS. But sometimes those companies which have got very specific cases, and they want to have the model which is the best of the best for their specific case, and they have got a lot of money, because building the model is not the cheapest thing, they will invest. Again, they will do it on the cloud, on AWS, where they have got the access to the to highly specified dedicated chips, and they will build their own models, which maybe we'll see they will also provide for other companies. So those are also quite interesting, that depending on the size, how much money you have got, and the problem which you want to solve, you might use existing model, or you might say, we will build something by ourselves.
Oh, that's super interesting. And I believe we are living in exciting times, but in a good way, at least for now. We have a question from Sebastian that I would like to use as a segue to our conversation. So we are discussing, well, you mentioned at the beginning of our talk today that you're switching the context. So we're jumping from the call with the startup and then to the enterprise segment. And then we started recently discussed the customer use cases. So Sebastian would love to know, who is the driver behind the change when it comes to enterprise segment the most? Like, who is talking the most? Like, who is the person usually coming? Like, is it the data team, cloud team, or maybe some strategic thinker, or is it coming from C-level? How does it look right now?
Of course, there's no one answer for this, but from my perspective, from my experience, from what I have seen, it's business. It's business, not really IT, not really like cloud teams, IT, and so on. It's business. And it's in a good way, pretty much. So the business is thinking about, what kind of a product they are offering, what kind of functionality they are offering, and they're thinking, let's use this hot topic of generative AI, and maybe we could do something more. Maybe we could add new functionality and so on. So the most popular driver, in corporation, enterprises, companies, is the business, and then this demand of let's use generative AI is going from business to IT, and then IT is like figuring out, can we solve it? Like, is it the proper use case, or maybe it's still like, not now, maybe in 5-10 years. So the business is the main driver. But it's a good way. But very often it's like this with those hot topics. It's like the blockchain a few years ago. Still, nobody, like a lot of people were wondering, do we need blockchain for what? But because it was hot topic, the business wanted to use blockchain, and then it was going to IT, which was figuring out do we really need it? So, yeah.
Okay. I think that's a great answer. Thanks for that. I hope, Sebastian, that you're satisfied. I'm satisfied. What I hear is that actually it helps business side of companies be better with imagination, like with like imagination. That is, for me, like all the AI tools out there, like the Midjourney or whatever, helps me draw my vision. I'm terrible at drawing things. Like I have not the skills, and I'm having all these ideas in my mind, and they just without occupying like the designer's time, I can make a prompt, and then AI helps me to show the possible outcome of my vision in my brain. So I think it may be similar for the business, that it helps them, like unlocks creativity, because before they were just they needed IT teams, like even to start with some kind of proof of concept. Right now they can take the very early stage of the development and phase, and they can use the AI tools to test it and figure out and maybe brief better IT teams what are the solutions they're really looking into.
No, totally. And, of course, everything depends on what kind of a business we are doing and so on. If our business is about, let's say we are producing, something like a real stuff, like, I don't know, like a pen, there is a question, will generative AI will help us, in which way and so on. I don't know, maybe yes, maybe no, but probably, the use cases are quite limited, let me say like this. But if we're working in a business when it's about, generative content, images and so on, it actually can help us a lot. Like, if we are like producing games, we can really speed up the process of creating the the images, the rendering and so on. So it's opening new doors. So this creativity which you mentioned is like really accelerated thanks to generative AI, and it's actually opening new doors of new things which we could do, and maybe not always this day to day because of the problems, challenges which we mentioned before, but maybe in 1 year when we will solve those new problems. So like you said a few minutes ago, we are living in exciting times, and of course we have been saying this every year, like for the last 50, 100 years. But, I would say that this year is more exciting than the previous year. And one of the biggest reasons is the rise again of machine learning in the form of generative AI.
Yeah, great. I see that Sebastian is also satisfied with the answer, and he also provided a comment that this is also another stage of data liberalization process, and I think it's a great comment. Yeah, that's true. So data is being also unlocked, so we can, thanks to AI, we can have all these angles summarized, and it's easier to play with data with the generative AI tools and solutions as well. When we were discussing like customers, like what is AWS doing specifically to make generative AI more accessible to developers, so to the IT teams?
So I mentioned to you, a few minutes ago, like a few services, but actually I didn't mention all of them because we also don't have time. But one of the, the tools solutions which also AWS offers, there's the service which is called a Code Whisper. A Code Whisper is a very special service, not for business, but this time dedicated for, for the developers. And pretty much Code Whisper is a generative AI, coding a companion. So pretty much imagine that you are a developer, you are coding, something, and in the normal old good times, you as a developer, you would need to write all lines of code, Some of them more interesting, some of them more boring, but every line is on you pretty much. And now with the rise of generative AI, with the help of Code Whisper, pretty much you can just write like a description of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. Like I want to do, like, let's say, create a server. I want to do a loop which will iterate via an array of objects and so on. And then based on this, what Code Whisper will do, it will generate the code for you, and it will just make it easier, faster for you, then to add new functionalities and so on. So we have run some benchmarks when we started, when we announced the service, and pretty much it turned out that we had like two groups of people who had like similar tasks. And pretty much the group which were using generative AI Code Whisper not only did they managed to solve the problems 27% better than the group which were doing everything by themselves, but also it took like less than 57% time of time to accomplish this. So pretty much we see that thanks to generative AI, thanks to like solutions like Code Whisper, developers can be more efficient because they can focus more on coding the stuff which they want to do, and not like really on stuff which are just copying, pasting, loops and so on, which are not so the most interesting. But also what is crucial here is about the security. Before we were talking about the security in the context of what is happening with the data, but now we are entering a new topic. If the developer is coding something, there is a question, maybe he will make a mistake, she will make a mistake because he is tired, or just he forgot about something. So thanks to generative AI, thanks to Code Whisper, some of the things will be checked automatically. And then the developer will write something and he will see, oh, I made a mistake, because the Code Whisper will show him, oh, here, you forgot about, catching some exception or something. So again, it's making the life of developers easier, actually, and more interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we have some developers in the audience today. But when you said about this, like the name actually put a very interesting image in my mind. So I will share it right now, because I just imagined that I have like angel and the devil sitting on my arms, like whispering, like, yeah, do this. So, but then I also like maybe more digital analogy. We have like Google Maps or maps in general that are suggesting a route. So I give them, like, I'm at my location, so I point A and I want to travel to point B. And I have a couple of possible routes to get there. And the similar is like with code. So I can code the solution that will drive to results like faster, but maybe not efficient for like, I don't know, battery, whatever purposes, like the energy consumption will be higher. Then I can, there are a couple of routes I can take as a developer to put the code. So a couple of different solutions to get to the point B as a main goal. So is the Code Whisperer also suggesting different ways of changing the code? Like, there's a short track you can go if you change this part of your code into this part. Is it like works also in this way?
Pretty much yes. So whenever you are you are coding something, you are writing the description, the Code Whisperer will give you suggestion, like this is how it should be done, pretty much. But you might say, no, really, because of the reasons. And then you can just click on the arrow, next suggestion. Let's try to see other ways and so on. Why is it important? Because let's be honest, it doesn't know what you will do next. So maybe already in your head you have got the next thing which you want to do, and where it should go, in which direction it should go to make your life easier in the next step. What is also important here is the topic of what is the source of idea? What is the source of idea? Because how those things are working, again, those generative AI models are working because they have analyzed millions of codes on Amazon code base, on publicly available repositories and so on. So some of the cases, there is a question about, what is the licensing? Can you use it and so on? So pretty much when you will click on arrow or like this, I don't like this and so on, you will also see what is the source of the idea. So you can also validate, check if maybe I should not be using this because the licensing is, limiting me in this topic and so on. So getting back to your question, yes, multiple different ways to get from point A to point B, and Code Whisperer will allow you to choose the best, which in your eyes is the best for your problem.
Oh, that's super interesting, super helpful. And one more thing that just popped in my mind when you were saying how these things work. So my word is like the words, content, ideas, and I play with that, and I understand right now, seeing how different people are started using generative AI tools, be it ChatGPT or whatever other tools that helps them create content. The outcome really rely on the input, like what is the prompt, what is the thing I'm asking the generative AI to do, and when I iterate on that, I can have very many different outcomes, and one can be very like give me a low level of satisfaction, like I know that the intern could do better, or the person with the basics writing skills can do better. But I know that if I change the prompts, the way I'm talking to the generative AI, it may be like amazing result, amazing outcome. Is the same with and then obviously evolved that we don't have the copywriters anymore, we have the prompt writers, right? So they were already like job roles description that we need people to understand how to prompt, how to talk to generative AI. Is it the same with the developers, that they need to sometimes, maybe if I'm sharing my goal with the generative AI, like with the Code Whisperer, should I be also wary about the thing that how I phrase the goal?
So pretty much not really. So okay. Yes, like you said, the prompt engineering and so on, which is really interesting thing, because if we would use this for this term a few years ago, everybody would be like, what the hell, what is this, like a job, like what kind of job is it? And now we are talking about this. So yes, with the normal large language models, this is the way to properly teach the model how to behave, how to interact with customers, with end users, and so on. Regarding the tools like Code Whisperer and so on, it's more adjusted to the developer pretty much. So the developer doesn't really need to adjust to the model to learn how to use it and so on. It will be the other way. And what is the reason for this? I would say it's much more structure, pretty much coding. So from the get-go, from the start, the way how the code and models works and the developers is very similar. That's why they don't need to adjust to each other. They are speaking the same language, so pretty much they will be working in a very efficient way together.
Okay, that helps me understand the setup on the developer side. Okay, we have checking the time, like the four more minutes, and I think we have one question we can answer from Paulina. So yeah, and that's the question: when it comes to the infrastructure and tools that AWS provides to support AI and machine learning workloads, can you provide insights into them?
Sure. So although today we were talking about generative AI when we were discussing like services like SageMaker, Bedrock, Code Whisperer, and so on, actually there's 20 or 30 different services for machine learning. It's like, again, the hammer, generative AI is not answer for everything. Sometimes there are easier way to use machine learning. So there's 20, 30 of them. Of course, we don't have time, and I don't want to iterate via all of them. But for example, there is a service for converting text to audio, which is called Poly. A Poly, you just provide the text, you tell in which language the text is, and it will create the audio. There are service for analyzing, the text is positive, negative, for analyzing images. Is it a man? Is it like, how old the man is? Is it a celebrity? So different solutions, different, like I like to say Lego blocks, building blocks to solve different problems. Some of them are very unique. On left of my head, there is like this car, which is called a deep racer. And this is one of the services from AWS. So let me even take it. I will just show you. So this is a service from AWS, which is a machine learning solution. What exactly is it? Pretty much it's a deep racer. So it's using not generative AI, but something which is called reinforcement learning. So a different type of machine learning. So pretty much you build a model and then you deploy this model on this car, and pretty much you teach the car how to drive. So you teach it how to drive, and there's the track on the ground, and it's driving by itself. So I like to joke that you're building a small mini Tesla which will drive by itself. And why AWS is doing this? This is a toy which works because it's a great way to teach people how to use machine learning, how to build machine learning models, and so on. So there are like 2 cameras, there are like sensors and so on, and it really can take up to like 30 minutes. You deploy the model here, and you see how it's driving via the track, and then you can train it better. You can modify this, and very often we see that people are like doing like some kind of contest. Okay, there's a company with different people, and which model will be the best so that the car will go via the track the fastest, like 5 seconds, 4 seconds, and so on. This is really exciting. If somebody will want, on the YouTube, you will find, different movies. So this is one of such solutions. But like I said, like much more than 20 or 30 services which are focusing on machine learning. So definitely worth checking.
Okay, amazing. I'm speechless a bit, but okay. I would like to say a big thank you, Tomasz, to you for the amazing hour. It was really inspiring and insightful session for me. I hope our audience has the same experience, and it really made me want to rethink my career strategy. Maybe I should start coding with the code whispers. Maybe it will be easier for me to make up all these years I was playing with words instead of words in a different way. Maybe it's not too late for me even to switch. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the hour of really amazing insights into AWS and into generative AI. I hope it was informative and insightful and inspiring for our attendees audience as well. I really want to have a hands-on experience with that little toy, mini Tesla you mentioned. So yeah, that looks amazing and super fun to learn and code and play around with it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot for having me. Thanks a lot for the conversation. I enjoyed it a lot, and till the next time.
Yeah, and let's bring this your energy. I hope this really helps other people understand to focus on benefits of generative AI and like figuring out solution how to use this super hammer to solve their problems. Thanks again.
Cheers.